In this edition of Southern Newsweek, a hardy group of runners compete against the clock at the annual University Clock Tower race. The COVID-19 coronavirus could have an impact on imported furniture as suppliers stop manufacturing. And a vineyard with a difference is being lovingly tended in Pinot Noir country. Welcome to Southern Newsweek. I'm Daryl Baser. 4 runners managed to beat the bells at this year's race around the University of Otago Registry building. Hosted by the Hill City University Athletic Club as part of orientation, the objective of the race is to circle the clock tower within the time it takes to chime 12.
It's a fast race. There's a fair bit of cash and prizes on the board. And, you know, there's a good turnout, so it's a bit more competitive than we thought it was going to be.
Numbers were up for this year's annual Round the Clock Tower race, held as part of O Week at the University of Otago. Race entrants this year included 18 men, 9 women and a dinosaur. A bit of a surprise for race organiser Jared Monk, but encouraging him to think about expanding race categories next year.
She came down early this morning. She said, I'm going to be running in a dinosaur costume. I said, okay. It was interesting. And then obviously, a lot of the registry staff looked like, she was having a lot of fun out there. So, it's been suggested that maybe there's a staff race next year.
Monk says he reinvigorated the not-so-old tradition of running around the clock tower last year as a way to promote running among students.
2011 was the last year it was held, and from before then it was from 1991 to 2011, so 20 years, and then just a big lull. And I was just like, I wanted an event in O Week to sort of stimulate the students that we see on Clubs Day like we did yesterday, and be like, hey, we've got an event on, come down, have a run and stuff like that.
The fun event is not just about beating the others, but also completing the circuit in the time it takes the clock to chime 12.
You can have a personal best, but beating the chimes, that's sort of, it's cloud, it's a bit of brag rights,
Each year, several sponsors provide a handsome array of prizes, including $400 cash for the first man and woman. Shay Veach won the men's with a time of 51.2 seconds, and less than 5 seconds behind him was Samantha Harding with a time of 55.9. Harding's a first-year sports science student from Tasman, where she's being coached in 400-metre sprints, a distance only slightly longer than the clock tower circuit.
It was good, it was a bit of fun, lots of freebie stuff, but yeah, just good atmosphere. Yeah. And
4 runners managed to beat the bells this year, up from 2 last year. In Dunedin, the South today.
A new mural painted in central Dunedin hopes to push a serious health message out into the wider community. Dunedin artist Guy Howard Smith was painting a huge mural with a smoke-free message on the side of an office building in Great King Street.
It's essentially an anti-smoking message.
There's a serious health message behind Dunedin's newest mural. Artist Guy Howard Smith has been commissioned by the Southern DHB to help normalise and promote a smoke-free New Zealand, and it might already be working.
Been a lady that comes here for her cigarette break, which I felt quite bad about because she didn't realise that it was going to be a big lung with a cigarette there, but I broke the news to her, and she was supportive of it and said that she'd been meaning to quit, so yeah, it's already doing its job, obviously.
Howard Smith has already worked on a number of street art pieces around Dunedin, including a recently completed mural at Logan Park High School. He says this location, on the side of the Office Max building in Great King Street, is almost perfect.
It's been a really awesome surface because it's just flat concrete, and it's been very helpful having this big access man scissor lift to go up and down, which has been really fun actually.
Public Health South Health Promotion Advisor Catherine Thomas says the idea behind the mural was to find new ways to spread the smoke-free message. The mural is based on a similar project in Palmerston North, which uses art as a way of normalising a smoke-free future.
So basically we've been trying to think of novel things that we can do to get people thinking about smoke-free and the environment and their health.
As well as promoting a healthier lifestyle, the mural was supposed to get people thinking about the connection between their health and the environment around them. And Thomas says she is sure the artwork will provoke a reaction one way or the other.
There'll probably be a lot of positive, but then also a lot of negative as well, especially because people don't really like I don't know, talking about smoking because people want to have freedom of choice, which is fair enough. But then also there should be choice for people who don't smoke as well.
Final touches are now being added to the mural, and Howard Smith says he hopes to finish within the next week. In Dunedin, the South Today.
A vineyard with a difference is being established at Bannockburn in central Otago. On a patch of dry, hilly land, wine expert Robin Dicey is hoping to grow high-quality grapes without the aid of irrigation.
Imagine growing grapevines in central Otago without pumping millions of litres of water through an array of plastic piping. You would think the vines would wither and die in the heat of the central Otago summer. But wine industry pioneer Robin Dicey is exploring that very idea in Bannockburn as a retirement project.
It's not going to be as easy as having an irrigated standard type vineyard. It's going to take a longer time. But my hope is that ultimately what the yield will give us is an improvement in quality, flavour, dimension, wine structure, a little bit different to the standard irrigated vineyards.
6 months ago, he and his son Matt planted a few dozen vines at Bannockburn, with no intention of turning on the irrigation system for the experimental 2 rows. With 2 periods of heavy rain since then, the young vines have so far survived.
We know this is a summer rainfall area. It's be a very rare summer we don't get some rainfall, which, you know, the cherry guys can attest to being a problem for them, but is a good thing for us if we're going dry land. It means that we do get that occasional shower just to get a bit of deep root rooting, a deep profile wetting.
Dicey says grapes in their natural environment never have irrigation, and he's hoping his vine's roots will go looking for their own source of water.
In looking for water, it goes down to depths, which aren't just going to be on the surface, where the roots are dependent on the irrigation. By going deeper, it's also going to, I hope, find some more mineral reserves than would be found in the topsoil.
He says it will take longer for dryland vineyards to establish, and they'll yield less grapes, but it's about quality and not quantity, with wine made from higher quality grapes fetching a better price.
The 2 rows they gave me, they put it on the boniest bit of soil they could, on the basis that if it can grow there, if it can survive, if those 2 rows can survive, then maybe there is a future for it. Prove it. Well, we're proving it.
Dicey says he's not aware of anyone else in the region taking the gamble on dryland viticulture. In Bannockburn, the South Today.
One of Dunedin's major furniture stores says the COVID-19 virus is delaying its orders from China. My Mate John's Furniture Warehouse imports most of its stock from China, and the company's director says they're already experiencing delays. There's slightly more space than usual at this Dunedin furniture store, and the company says the COVID-19 coronavirus is to blame.
What we're finding is that a lot of orders, back orders, have been delayed due to the coronavirus. So what it means for us is a potential for a disruption to our supply chain here in store.
Director Pete Williamson says they carry a lot of stock, so aren't going to run out of beds, etc. just yet. But the future of stock coming from China could be affected by factories being closed to prevent the spread of the virus.
So there's absolutely no problems in terms of supply at the moment. It's more sort of looking to the future and the ramifications of that virus. Yeah.
Williamson says he's in regular contact with Chinese suppliers, but says it can be hard to get accurate information at times.
It's always hard to tell how accurate that information is that's coming out of China. But we're in contact with the guys over there, and they're working pretty hard to get things up and running. Yeah.
He says the current situation could be a wake-up call for some in the importing business, and says it could lead to a shift from relying on China too heavily, changing suppliers to other countries.
We are looking at alternative suppliers as well. So we do source furniture out of places like Vietnam, Malaysia as well. So there are other possibilities there in terms of supply.
He says the company is big enough to survive any fallout from the issues surrounding COVID-19, as the company has several fully stocked warehouses around its main shop in Dunedin. The outbreak of the virus continues to impact businesses both locally and nationally, with New Zealand Post announcing it's halting all mail from China following the suspension of airline services to the country. Tourism continues to suffer, with the New Zealand government extending its travel ban on anyone coming from or transferring through mainland China. In Dunedin, the South Today. Still to come on this edition of Southern Newsweek, around 1,000 revellers attend the annual Waitati Music Festival, and a flotilla of homemade rafts took to the Balclutha River in a wonderfully risky raft race. See you after the break. Welcome back. The colour, the sights and above all the sounds made Bland Park anything but bland during the Waitati Music Festival last weekend. More than 1,000 people made the most of the 12 hours of non-stop music across 3 stages in a genre-bending lineup that included everything from poetry and folk to dance music, punk, rock and reggae. A truly big day out. The Waitati Music Festival promised 12 hours of music and entertainment. And for those thousands of revellers who flocked to the coastal township, it certainly delivered. The festival's main organiser, Katie Peppercorn, says the night's Waitati Music Festival was a complete success.
Music's still amazing quality as last year, as every year. Crowd's always great. We just attract the most friendliest Dunediners.
Peppercorn says despite the odd shower coming through, everything ran smoothly. One of the early acts on the Poet Palette is Dunedin neuroscience student Timmy Kahuma, who's ably assisted by his DJ and producer Andre Tai.
My biggest goal is to make music someone can listen to and be like, oh yeah, I can relate to that, or like, oh that helps me kind of thing.
The pair recently opened for hip-hop legend Savage and are scheduled to play at the South Dunedin Street Festival next month. Amongst the many stalls was a stone carving tent where people could have a go at soft stone carving under an expert tutor.
So this is a good way to just allow them to express themselves, and there's no mistakes. It's just an ongoing learning process.
Acts were balanced between the Poet Palette, a second stage and the main stage across the 12-hour period, including guitarist Richard Wallace and New Zealand's Poet Laureate David Eggleton. Queenstown musician Erin Crowley, who performs as Erin Sphere, took to the main stage with her process of creating songs live using looping pedals and 5 or more instruments.
I'll record a bar or 2 bars. It's variable because I can lock the 2 of the pedals together, or I can leave them free flowing. So basically I record that one loop and then I'll start playing over it. So I might start with guitar and then put a bass track down and then put some keys in, and then I might put drums on another channel.
Post-punk band Die 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 were the headline act on the main stage, entertaining the crowd into the night. Frontman Andrew Wilson joining the crowd, microphone in hand, a couple of times. Wilson says they're about to head overseas to record again with one of the legendary producers in their genre.
Yeah, we're doing a new album in July back in Chicago with Steve Albini, and so we're going to try and play. We were going to play more than half new songs, but now we've decided to only do about a quarter. Yeah, we started getting a bit shy, you know.
From the mathematical precision of Die Die Die, the last band of the night were Shakes and the Troublemakers on the second stage, sharing their own brand of garage-inspired rock and roll, with a definite swagger and a glint in their eye. In Dunedin, the South Today. 8 crews braved the mighty Clutha River last weekend, hoping to garner coveted Big Raft River race titles. While there may have been fewer entries this year, organisers are happy with how the race panned out.
Despite less than ideal weather conditions, 8 keen teams and their homemade rafts took to the Clutha River for this year's Big River Raft Race. Raft Race spokeswoman Lila McNutt was happy with how the race played out.
We've got 8 rafts this year. It's a little bit down from last year, but that was expected with the weather, so yeah, a bit colder today. So.
Recent severe flooding of the river and surrounding areas may have also had an effect on entries. McNutt says she understood there would be still some worry about the floodwaters, but the organisers took all precautions necessary to ensure it was safe.
Yeah, I think it has made people think a bit more about it, just, you know, the logs and things going down the river, but we've got the local Landsar groups and the Surf Life Saving Club on the water today, so that's helping us out a lot too.
Crossing the finish line in first place were the Clydevale Whisky Chasers, who bettered their second place in last year's race to take out the sought-after Big River title.
I'll come back every year. Yeah, more improvements, more upgrades.
As well as the race, the Big River Festival was also held on the banks of the Clutha. In Balclutha, the South Today.
Memorial Park in Mossville was the place to be on Sunday, with the annual Party in the Park entertaining a crowd of hundreds. Organisers say after their experiment to hold the event at a nearby sports field, they're happy to have returned to their original location.
A large crowd enjoyed the lovely sunshine at this year's Mossville Party in the Park on Saturday. Entertainment throughout the day included several performers, as well as a variety of market stalls, bouncy castles, face painting and plenty of food options. Organiser Ian Chalmers says he was pleased with the turnout.
It's looking pretty good actually. There's a lot of people here for this early in the morning. So, and of course it's lunchtime now. A lot of people coming around for the food and foodies. So I think it's a good number for so early in the day.
The event was first held about 20 years ago to give back to the community, as well as to serve as a fundraiser to buy new play equipment for the park.
Oh, Party in the Park was started a number of years ago here by a happy bunch of people wanting to promote Mossville and do some things for the kids' park here, and it's sort of grown over the years.
This year saw organisers shift the event back amongst the trees and swings of Memorial Park, after 2 years across the road on the sports grounds of Peter Johnson Park. And Ian Chalmers says they're happy with the decision.
The kids' park here is much more user-friendly. It's got an atmosphere which the Peter Johnson Park didn't have. As you can see by the number of people here today, mauling around through the trees and the food stalls, that sort of thing, they're much happier here, I think.
In Mossville, the South Today.
A scheme to cut back on food waste in cafes was launched in Dunedin this week. The new approach uses a mobile app which connects the public to food retailers and eateries who have discounted and surplus food.
Welcome to the 21st century. Dunedin City Council has helped launch a mobile phone app program allowing cafes to list the food they discount to help clear their shelves at the end of the day. Using the app, shoppers can pay for their item via their mobile phone and simply claim it when they walk into the cafe.
Cafes at the end of the day or partway during the day when they've got food that they know they're not going to be able to sell that would otherwise go to landfill, they can load it up to the app and customers can buy it through the app at half price and just come in and collect it.
Dunedin City Council Good Food Dunedin Project Coordinator Ruth Zynert says the mobile phone app helps hungry shoppers find cheap food near the end of the business day and potentially brings in customers a cafe would otherwise not have. And the results are good for the environment.
Food makes up a third of the entire waste that goes to landfill, and obviously once it goes to landfill it creates a lot of greenhouse gas.
Called Foodprint, the software was recently launched in Auckland, with Dunedin not far behind.
When we heard about Foodprint and how well it was doing in Auckland, we contacted them and said, hey, would you like to use Dunedin as your second city? And they jumped at the chance. So yeah, it's all happened very quickly and we're really thrilled.
Zynert says more than 20 eateries in Dunedin have already joined the mobile app. In Dunedin, the South Today.
After the break on this edition of Southern Newsweek, around 100 irritated Matata residents gathered to sign a petition to remove toxic residue, and a 19th century hand warmer made from a penguin is visited at the Otago Museum by a special guest. See you after the break. Thanks for staying with us. About 100 angry locals gathered in Matata on Monday to launch a petition urging the government to take any means necessary to remove the Ovea premix dumped in their town. The petition was started by New Zealand First List MP Mark Patterson, who wants to keep the issue in the public eye.
Laurel Turnbull, spokeswoman for the Sort Out the Dross action group, became the first to sign a petition yesterday calling on the government to remove the potentially toxic Ovea premix from its current storage in Mataura's former paper mill. Turnbull says they're planning to take the petition door to door in Mataura, as well as in the neighbouring towns of Wyndham, Edendale and Gore. And she's inviting others to sign the petition online.
If you haven't had the chance to sign it by going door to door, contact us because we want everyone to sign it. Thank you very much, and thank you, Mark.
Almost 10,000 tonnes of waste from the Tiwai Point smelter has been stored on the site of the banks of the Matata River since 2014, and New Zealand First MP Mark Patterson wants to keep the issue in the public eye.
We must not let the pressure locally recede as the water has receded, because this has been a long, torturous process. It has taken 6 years, and as soon as it leaves the headlines, the danger is that it will still be there in 6 more or 2 more as it takes to get the current contract to work its way through.
The smelter dross can generate poisonous ammonia gas if it gets wet, such as during a flood. And Gore District Mayor Tracy Hicks told the protesters the smelter's owners have a moral responsibility to remove the waste.
Rio Tinto would argue that they don't have a legal responsibility. I'm sure that there will be counter-arguments to that come forward, but whether they have a legal responsibility or not, they've got a moral responsibility. They've got a moral responsibility as a corporate, a large corporate, in fact probably the largest corporate in our province, and we need to be sending them a message loud and clear.
Environment Minister David Parker is currently reviewing legal advice about the dross issue. In Matata, the South Today.
A well-travelled ladies' hand warmer from over 100 years ago, which is now on display at the Otago Museum, has been visited by a descendant of its original owner. Canadian donor Laurie Hardy travelled to Dunedin to see the rare 19th century emperor penguin skin muff, which had earlier made the long journey back home to Dunedin from North America. Reunited with one of her family heirlooms, Canadian woman Laurie Hardy visits Otago Museum to warm her hands on a taonga which has been in her family for more than 100 years.
We wanted to come and see how it was doing because it had made its way from New Zealand to Sydney, Australia, within my family, and it came to Canada, and my sister and I wanted to return it to its birthplace.
A delighted Laurie Hardy took the chance to see the muff, which she and her late sister Maxine Goodman gave to the museum several years ago. She says she's often talked about returning the item to Otago, where it was made.
After all those many years, it's hundreds of years, 1880s, so we're just so pleased that it's been preserved and looked after, and it's home.
She's also impressed at the fine condition of the fashion item, with the bird's yellow markings intact, which had been created about 1880. Otago Museum Humanities Curator Moira White says due to its flamboyant markings, the penguin was made into this well-travelled muff.
I'm assuming it was made into a muff partly because it was this kind of a penguin with that blaze of yellow on it. There wasn't much yellow on or in dress at this stage, so this would have been quite kind of exotic.
Laurie Hardy and her husband are making a 3-week visit to the South Island and are pleased to learn more about the historic fashion item. White says the muff was made by an early Dunedin furrier.
By the firm of J. Constantine. He seemed to be a furrier who specialised partly in feathers. He did taxidermy, for example, of birds and animals.
Hardy is pleased White took the time to research the muff's history and was able to share more of its tale with her. In Dunedin, the South Today. For some, their vision of a dream holiday conjures up floating around in a pool with cocktails to follow. But for Christchurch man Rob Hutchings, his latest holiday involved a 240-kilometre swim of the Clutha River from Lake Wanaka to the Pacific Ocean.
Christchurch man Rob Hutchings becomes the first known person to swim the entire length of the Clutha River, reaching the river mouth 15 kilometres south of Balclutha yesterday. Setting off from Lake Wanaka on Thursday last week, the 240-kilometre swim took the 44-year-old just over 4.5 days to complete.
From Wanaka to the Pacific, it took 5 days, 4 days and about, I don't know if that was 2 or 3 hours. That was the most unbelievable adventure of my life.
The Canadian-born chiropractor was assisted the entire way by 2 kayakers, helping him navigate the rapids, sluggish lake water and occasional hidden rock. Almost a year in the planning, Hutchins struggled to find the words to sum up his achievement.
I'm overwhelmed. I wish I could say something that's really philosophical and inspiring, but I just would say to anybody who comes up with any kind of crazy idea is just, follow your heart and do what you love.
Hutchins' wife, Tansy Boggin, was also an integral part of the adventure, providing support and managing the swim from the riverbank.
Pretty determined man. He's got a passion for moving his body and nature and the water in particular, and exploring New Zealand. I think that's what he's really passionate about, and no better way than in the water.
After leaving the water yesterday, all Hutchins wanted to do was eat the biggest pizza he could find. And Balclutha, the South Today.
That wraps up this edition of Southern Newsweek. For the latest news from the Southern region, head online to odt.co.nz and follow Channel 39 on Facebook and YouTube. Have a great night. Ka kite anō.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.